he's talking community, but I can't tell, is it community or is he talking homesteading at the end? You
Right.
know, because he talks about, you know, our kids' faces are rarely glued to a screen. They go outside, you know, they hatchet, rake, and a match, and they've got hours of entertainment. You know, all of that stuff. Yeah. I just have a lot of questions. I don't.
No, really. We're really not criticizing at all. It's just
I would love to talk to you or interview you or whatever about it's really interesting.
Welcome back to the Circle Dwellers podcast, a production of the Protestant monastic order of Life Mission Fellowship. This is a show about living out the gospel in an intentional Christian community. My name is Matt Krell, and I'm back here with my brother in Christ and in blood, Timothy Krell.
Hey, Matt. How's it going?
So, Tim, something interesting happened. I actually am an email subscriber to Plough magazine, which, as you know, is the publishing house for the Bruderhof, which is a Protestant intentional community that have bases pretty much all over the world. There's a bunch of them up in New York, and I've actually visited one of the Hofs a few times, and we've actually interacted with the Bruderhof on a couple of occasions. They've come out here, we've talked with them and such. So yeah, we're friends. Anyway, but there was a really interesting article they published recently. It titled "An Experiment in Common Living," and it's not paywalled or anything, so I will post the link down in the description of this video. But basically, their contributor Jeffrey Wald actually started a small intentional community out in where was it? An article here. I have the article pulled up.
North Carolina.
North Carolina. Is that right? North Carolina.
He says, I moved from St. Paul, Minnesota to Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
It. North Carolina. Yeah. So he basically bought a ranch, pretty sizable bit of property, and invited a bunch of friends and family to come live with him in the house. And then some of the family bought a house right next to his as well. And he basically started a small intentional community. He had a lot of teens come from friends that he knew. They had a bunch of different houses and rooms where they started holding up people. And he kind of has a very honest look at what that common life was like. Hey everybody, this is Editor Matt. I forgot to mention that you should probably go read the article first before you watch this thing. This is going to be kind of a loose discussion of our thoughts here, so it's a bit disorganized or whatever. But yeah, it's not paywalled. It'll be in the description. You can go read it. And by the way, Mr. Wald, if you want to come on the podcast, we would love to have you. We're very excited and wish you well so much about what you're doing in North Carolina. So please, we'd love you to have you on the podcast and talk to you more about what you're doing down there. Thank you.
I would have liked to have seen in the article, the thing I was curious is like the nitty gritty details of what that entails. Am I forgetting that, or does he talk about that in the article?
He talks a little bit about that. Like one of the things he did is they started a Christ's room, basically, and the little bit I understand it, it's really a guest room essentially where you can invite people who need help or friends and family and such. I think that was the idea. But yeah, he does get into a little bit of the practicalities of how basically his house started turning into a hostel for a lot of different people. And then he didn't get into like a lot of the specific like logistical difficulties, but he did mention a lot of the immediate problems of dealing with the common life. And that's kind of what his basic point was, which is that be careful what you wish for. Right. And he wasn't saying like poorly about the concept per se, but one of the things he points out here is like one of the teens that was living with him started driving a community car that they purchased and literally backed it into a pole a couple days after they got it. Right. And then some of the other teens were having difficulty in school, and then the house rules weren't always being followed. And, people would get on each other's nerves living so close to each other. So he gets into some of those like very practical intentions.
Yeah. Because he says in the article, he says, um, they belong to a rich Catholic community, as a link to the website for them, which I briefly looked at. Then he says in the next paragraph, but we, especially my wife, desired something more: life lived and shared in common in Christian community, and which was kind of neat. But I would have, one thing I was wanting from the article was I was wanting him to contrast of like what do you have when you moved into this place? What is different about that than this Catholic community that you were a part of? You know, I think you can kind of intuit from the article that it's just it's proximity with other people and like being more daily connected with other people or something. But yeah, it's interesting because like for us and the way we live in a covenanted community, so like it's very intentional, you know, like we have very purposeful covenant points that we sign on to with each other, very clear guidelines, rules, if you might, you know, and different systems and things. Whereas with his, it seems kind of like it was, let's move into a house and then just have a bunch of other people live with us who kind of want to. I think is sort of what was going on.
Yeah, that was the same impression I got with him. It really was more that we're just inviting people who are interested in that type of life moving together, but there wasn't any like systematized idea of now you have to commit to this particular life. Here's the house rules and so forth. And like even going so far as to sign a covenant or anything. There wasn't really any of that. It was a little more loosey-goosey, we might say.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's commendable, like what they're doing. Like, I think that's really neat and definitely needs to be more of that. But I think too, like, I think it could definitely benefit from a little bit. And I don't know if it's just the way he's writing the article, but it feels to me like there could be more intentionality about it, of like what the, you know, what is the goal here? Because I feel like when you're in this kind of situation, it can be easy for like you have this overall goal and desire to like live together with other people and to and I may have been having trouble saying it because it's kind of vague in the article, you know, like he doesn't come out and say like, here's exactly the goal, you know, what I feel like is missing from my life and what I wanted to add, you know, which I really would have liked to have like heard him say that, just to understand what he was trying to accomplish, you know, with it. Because otherwise I feel like I'm just kind of guessing at what, you know, kind of inferring it. And so but I would imagine like what he's trying to do here is have something like, you know, more connectedness with other people in his community, a daily living, and not just with the nuclear family, but with other people and stuff. And it kind of sounds like that, what he's talking about with the family that moved with them before they moved into the house next to them.
Right.
And all of that. But because of, especially, that is not the norm, and that's not, our society is very fractured. It's very siloed, individualistic. And if you don't have some kind of framework or some kind of, you know, like what Covey might have of like a mission statement or something like that, you know, it can be very easy for that to just fall into sort of something loosey-goosey that just ends up being like, we're kind of doing the same thing, but every once in a while there's people around or something, you know? And this is like sounding like overly critical or something, but I'm not being critical, but that was the one thing that I was thinking like for myself in that position, because I was like, if I wasn't living in our community, like I'd probably,
Be trying to do
believing what we
something.
still believe, like I'd be
Yeah.
thinking like, how do I live in that kind of community?
Yeah.
But so I think that the first thing that came to my mind was just like, oh, this needs a little bit more structure, or there to be some
Yeah.
kind of like a covenant or some kind of set of kind of shared ideas about like, here's what we're trying to accomplish, and here's how we're going to go about doing that, and here's why we're doing it, because you know in other words, like if you don't have some kind of like mission statement, like Covey says, you're just going to fall into the default thing, right? And
Right.
the default thing is generally not the best thing, because it's the lazy path, it's the easy path, right? And so without setting some kind of clear intention of how you're going to push past that, it just will end up sliding back into that default thing, So like at the end of the article, I was kind of wondering, like, he's talking community, but I can't tell, is it community or is he talking homesteading at the end?
Right.
Because he talks about, our kids' faces are rarely glued to a screen. They go outside, they hatch at rate and a match, and they've got hours of entertainment, all of that stuff. So that's interesting to me, but like he ends on that. It's just a weird way to end, because you're basically saying, were you wanting to do homesteading, or were you wanting to do community living, right? And like, so I think that's one thing that feels a little confusing to me about the article, is like at the end he's talking about how he says feeding everyone is nearly a full-time job, so I guess that means with other people too, not just his immediate
I think
family?
they're having essentially multiple families in a single house. Like there's that family living next to them, but they're also hosting like young couples and singles and such. So they are eating meals together and doing a lot of activities together as one household, we might say.
He says our Wednesday night community dinners. So I guess they have maybe dinner together as a community. Yeah. I just have a lot of questions. I don't. It sort of does that. I don't know. There's a certain kind of writing, right? Which is, it's very entertaining, but it's like, it's more vibes than content, and I want to know the content.
Yeah, great point. I mean, who knows? Maybe we could try to invite him on the podcast to talk about it.
Mr. Wald, please take no offense at that.
No, really, we're really not criticizing at all. It's just
I would love to talk to you or interview you or whatever about it's really interesting. But my these are just the things that come to me when I'm reading it. I think it's I think it's really good, because it like left me with questions that I wanted answered. So it was a very good, engaging thing. But I would have like, yeah, when he's saying community, I was like, I want to know more. What do you mean by that exactly? Like it feels like there's a sort of assumption of like, I should know what that is. But to me, like there's a lot of different kinds of levels of that. So, and then that the family moved out to a different house. So I want to, like, when he's saying they have Wednesday night community dinners, like who is that with? Is it just you and that family, or are there other people still in the house with you, or like, and because it's been a while.
Yeah.
So
I think you're kind of hitting on, I think, a fairly important point, which is that community for most of us is simply the relationship that we would have with a bunch of other people collectively around something, right? But for you and me, who live in a very ordered monastic life, the definition of community is something a lot deeper than that. It's like a what we might say a rich entanglement with your brothers and sisters. It's not merely just you showing up to someone's house for fellowship every once in a while. And not saying that's a bad thing. Not at all. That's absolutely a good thing. But for many people, I think what they mean by community is that just intensifying that aspect of it. But for us, it's way, way, way more of that. It's something a lot closer to a marriage, perhaps, where it's like a true reuniting of different people for the purpose, for a single purpose. And in our case, it's to live out the gospel among our friends and family. It's to actually
Yeah.
live out
Well,
the
it's
things on the Sermon on the Mount.
exactly. I mean, and one of my favorite metaphors to talk about this is, the Gemeinschaft versus Gesellschaft
Right.
types of communities, right? So in German, they have that kind of concept of two different kinds of communities. The Gesellschaft is more of a loose association community. So that would be like your bowling club, or the any other kind of club or association that you might be with, or the the local programmers meet up, or different things like that. You're part of that. That is a Gesellschaft community. You're part of that community, but like it's not your full like identity of who you are. It's just a slice of who you are, right? It doesn't fully encompass all the core aspects of your life, right? Whereas Gemeinschaft is more all-encompassing. It's something that takes up everything of who you are. And we obviously think that the church should be more like the Gemeinschaft, whereas often it's more of a Gesellschaft thing. It's just, okay, this little slice that I associate with people, but then I have kind of my whole separate life over here, right?
Right.
And there's just a little bit of a sliver that church and being a Christian kind of affects there. He's talking about a community, right? And the whole conceit of the article is, an experiment in common living, right? And he has that kind of clever thing at the end about like he was always afraid of living a common life, right? But just like meaning boring, right? Which is but you were part of a Catholic community. What was the difference in the commonness of that community that you were saying wasn't enough versus this one? That's I think like it really needs to be fleshed out a little bit of what it is. Otherwise you risk falling into the same thing that you left, right? Which is some lower version of it. And like, what is that's the part that philosophically interests me too, is like, what is the difference between, is it just spending a little bit more time together, like if you're part of that other, like if you read that website from that other Catholic community, it sounds very what everyone calls community. It's like, oh, we're a big family and all that stuff, but he felt like there was something missing, right? So what element did you have to add to fill that hole of the thing that was missing, right? And is it just, well, I just needed people who weren't in my family living in my house? Or was it having that extra meal on Wednesday dinners together? And I think all of those things are not sufficient to really account for moving from that Gesellschaft mentality to the Gemeinschaft mentality. It's like, how do you there's something binary, like what is that binary thing that flips, right? Between, I don't think it's just a matter of degrees. It's not like an analog scale of, I was only at like level 20 and you got to get above 25 to really be fully in that community thing, that Gemeinschaft. And I like, for me, that is like, that's our covenant, is what that is, right? It's the covenant points, the full commitment to Christ, his people, and his work, is what we say in our mission statement. Like that whole thing of signing on to that, there may, we could have a period of time where we only have 3 common meals a week versus 4, of dinners or something. but that doesn't, it's not like the amount of those doesn't change whether you're in the community or not, because it's actually that commitment that we made to each other.
Right.
But the way he's talking about it in the article, it feels like, oh, it's just about, it's just a matter of degree, like we just didn't have enough of that community thing. And there's two different elements there. There's an amount of degree of stuff, but then there's also just that binary, like, no, I have a fundamentally different paradigm, which is, this is just a slice of my life that I'm giving to these people, but I'm fundamentally independent from it. Or no, I'm giving my whole life to these people, and they are my people, and they get everything from me, right? Like there's nothing held back, fully integrated with those people. And I think you need more than what he's described in this article to get that full flip, right? To be not just tweaking the intensities like you were saying.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it should be stated here that we're not saying that Gesellschaft, that association type of relationship, that type of community, is a bad thing. It's not at all. We're not saying that at all. What we're saying is that we believe the church should be a Gemeinschaft, or that far more committed marriage-like type of relationship where you're giving everything to your brothers and sisters. So I think you're here hitting the nail on the head, Tim, about like the thing that confuses me too about this is, obviously I think he's doing what he's doing is great and amazing, and more people should be doing it. But I can't. It's hard for me to put my finger on what I think there's something feels a little, how do I put this, off about what he's doing. And I think what I wish he could have would be something like that Gesellschaft type of commitment, because if he did,
Gemeinschaft,
Gemeinschaft type of commitment, because if he did, some of the problems that he was discussing in the article would resolve themselves, right? Like one of the things he points out is like you get on each other's nerves, right? And that's always true wherever you live, but at least part of the reason why you can get on someone's nerves is because you're oriented towards different things. You're just two individuals living in the same house together, more like roommates, right? When you're in a Gemeinschaft type of relationship, though you see those irritations as means for how you can develop in your walk with Jesus, as well as bless other people, right? Because you start realizing, hey, this is someone that God's put into my life to help me become a better person, and for me to see God in that person, right? And it's a lot harder to do that and to experience that when you're in this kind of a Gesellschaft type of relationship.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And again, we do not want to criticize what this guy's doing. In fact,
I want him
Jeffrey,
to explain
if you want
what
to
he's
come
doing
on,
more. That's what I want.
Absolutely. I mean,
I want to see a follow-up article. Is what I want.
Oh yeah, absolutely. If you're watching this, Jeffrey Wald, if you're watching this, please, we will have you on the podcast. We'd love to talk to you about this stuff, because we're just curious and interesting to see like what happened, and we love getting into like the nitty gritty details of like how did you do your meals and how did you get the car figured out and all that. Like we love to hear about all that stuff. So, I mean, honestly, I'm kind of excited that this happened, that they Plough published this, obviously, because I would love if more Christians would start doing this sort of thing, because that is the gospel. The real change of the gospel is that we're a new family in Christ. So yeah, please don't think that we're criticizing. We're not. We're just kind of confused. So we want to find out more about how you did things, and what do you mean by community and all this stuff. Well, anyway, I think, Tim, if we to kind of conclude here, it seems like he's still doing it, that he's still running the experiment. And I think as a sort of conclusion of my thoughts is that, well, we wish you well, good sir. We're praying for you. We're very happy that you keep going, and we're just cheering you on to keep trying to live this life, communal life.
Yeah, amen.
trying to think of a good video to plug.
Go watch the car sharing one. That's
Oh
a
yeah,
good
that's a
one.
great one. Yeah, that'd be fantastic. Yeah, I'm trying to think of like what's a good one a video we could plug at the end of this. But you're right, that would be a great one because the very first podcast we did, the first episode we did on this podcast was about sharing cars and how we actually do that and why we think that's so important for communal life. So it is a bit of a long podcast because we were still trying to figure things out here. So you have to put up with our earlier version of this podcast. But yeah, anyway, think that's all of the things. Yeah, well, we'll see you over there on the other episode.
All right. Thank you for your attention, everyone. Have a blessed day.